Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today, I am in a place which can be called an oasis in the city of Delhi, which has a lot of concrete, as we know. This is a 4-acre farmhouse, which is also the residence of the managing partner of one of India's leading law firms. Uh, I am talking of Mr. Mohit Saraf. He is founder managing partner of Saraf and Partners. And I'm happy to be recording at his farmhouse in Delhi today. Uh, I would like to welcome Mr. Mohit Saraf.
Thank you,
Thank
Tarun.
you. Thank you so much for inviting me to your residence. And it is a pleasure to be able to record here.
Thank you so much for coming over. It's such a pleasure.
And let me start from the beginning. When I came into your house and you were kind enough to show me your property, I could see this house built in a very traditional neoclassical style, like we see in Lutyens, Delhi.
Yes,
All those old bungalows
yes,
with a gazebo, your nice swimming pool, and these areas, and a lot of lawns. I could see a lot of sculptures.
yes.
Uh, were you brought up here in this house? Is this a whole ancestral house that you
No,
have?
I came to Delhi as a student. I lived out of hostel in Delhi University. And then when my professional career started, I lived in a Barsati in Lajpat Nagar.
Is it?
Yes, and that's where my life started. And then after working for 10 years, almost not 10 years, out of 5 years, I bought a house in Anand Niketan. And then in 2009, during the middle of Lehman crisis, I thought I should buy some of these houses because that was the time when the distress sale was going on in India. So I was able to uh, find a place like this, and then we renovated it. So this basically comes with a completion certificate, and we changed outside and changed architect a little bit, made it more classical because it was a little bit more modern, and we renovated it from inside.
And I was happy to know that not I mean, I realize your story is a rags to riches story. You grew from ground up. This is first generation.
First generation lawyer, absolutely first generation. And again, I think in my view, I'm not an exception. In legal business, in legal profession, I would say you will find lots of professionals who came from nowhere. I actually grew up in Patna, came here, lived in a hostel, started my life in a Barsati, and now I live in a good place like this. I would say a lot of people have done well because what lawyers really require is there is no branding. If you are very good and very hardworking and highly passionate, I think everybody can end up being like this.
Everybody.
It's not so difficult.
And you are quite a family man because I got to know that you live with your not only your parents but your in-laws also live with you.
Yes.
So
Because I think my wife, and she has one sister, she lives in the US, and therefore it didn't make sense for us to leave her two parents outside. So we just got everybody together. So now it's a complete family. My daughter, she's 12 years.
yes.
She has two sets of grandparents to pamper her. So I think it's been a great growing up for her.
So it's your 3-acre farmhouse, and you also have 6 cows here.
Yes.
So I mean, it's like a whole a family setup that you have your own little universe in this city of Delhi.
Yes, actually, during the COVID time, all our support staff also stay here. We have a house for them. Their family stays here. Their kids go to school nearby. So everything, and we have a vegetable garden. So really, during the 2 years period, virtually we didn't have any contact outside.
Yes.
Yes, almost the entire
Now,
peak COVID period, vegetables were grown inside, milk was inside, everything was inside.
I want to know from you, Saraf and Partners, which you founded some time ago, is already about 120 people strong so soon?
No, we are now 150. We started on 18th of July with a strength of 100.
Yes.
Today we are 150 plus.
So in 3.5 months, 150 people.
Yes.
I want to know from you, in your erstwhile law firm, there was a 9-month gap between, when you didn't go to your erstwhile law firm. But even then, when you started your new law firm, you could attract 150 people.
Yes.
How is that possible?
I tell you one thing. Unfortunately, I think what happened to me at my erstwhile firm, I was on 13th of October, I was expelled. And then I started the firm on 18th of July,
Hmm.
2020. So almost it was 9 months. But what is important is everybody almost the entire firm was hired by me. And all my partners were recruited by
In
me.
the erstwhile law firm?
Erstwhile firm, almost everybody was hired by me, recruited by me, trained by me, mentored by me. And they have been all waiting to join me. And I would say 9 months is a big period because all my friends from legal business, they used to say, Mohit, start your firm quickly. All your clients will go away. All your lawyers will go away. I said, don't worry about that. They'll all come. And they're all here.
I want to ask you something. Saraf and Partners is the name of your law firm. In this law firm, you hold a 33% stake. In your earlier law firm also, you hold a 33% stake. Now, I was wondering, if you started your own law firm, you would hold 51, 60, 70. Why only 33%?
I tell you, basically, in my erstwhile firm, there was really no conflict. The real conflict was that we have promised a lot of young partners. Rajiv and I had promised to a lot of my young partners that we will open up equity and make everybody an owner, a co-owner.
Okay.
That we did not do because of whatever reasons. Therefore, when we started the firm, I think a lot of my partners said, sir, you should be 51
Yes.
and 49 should be rest. I said it didn't make sense. Really, for me, I think God has been very kind. This is really my passion. I really want each partner, and I'm telling you that Tarun, you will see that each of my partner in 10 years from now will live in a place like this. And that's what my thing is. So really what I've done is I've kept 66%, 33% of equity is with me, 33% has been distributed, and 33% is in the escrow. And these 33% partners, if they perform well, they'll get more equity. And this will be used to attract and get more partners on board. So, and I think once this entire 66 gets diluted, I'm pretty open to diluting further on a pro rata basis.
So basically, you have not, because you are a founder, you have not been into this that I will own more. You're still owning only 33%. You're very clear about that.
Very clear.
So are you talking that you are willing to, you are saying something?
What I'm saying is, one is that typical partnership, you would expect all your younger partners to also contribute capital. But I've made sure that nobody contributes capital. They will only take upside of the profit. It's because really in any firm, you're building infrastructure, there is a lot of expenditure. I don't want them to bring capital.
Okay.
Because I don't want them to feel that whatever they have earned in life is at risk. So I want them to
So you are
be
taking the risk, but the benefits you will share with all your partners.
Yes.
Now, moving ahead into the law firm, Saraf and Partners, you have been known to have worked on some of the biggest deals in your life, having got some of the best businesses in your erstwhile law firm. In Saraf and Partners, what is their strategy for arbitration practice? We are doing a lot of shows on arbitration, and arbitration as a practice, they say in India, has the best potential. What important role does arbitration play in your practice here?
For me, I tell you, when particularly you know that I had a long litigation with my erstwhile partner, and now we're also, after that, also arbitration. I actually used that 9 months period, what I went through in the litigation and the arbitration, to actually to conceptualize the real litigation arbitration practice. I believe 50% of the revenue of my new firm in 3 years will be from litigation and arbitration. Because I believe that what you require from arbitration litigation is you require corporate lawyers to think through the strategy well. Because sometimes when litigation or arbitration is being done, generally the team is not transactional team. So they miss what is the commercial objective of the transaction. What are you trying to do? Because once you are on one path, then you can't change it to get another transaction, a commercial objective. So I want to be part of it, because really litigation and arbitrations are done by corporates for getting the prize, for getting stays. There is a purpose. And I believe that I can add a lot of value. I think this was really my first strong litigation arbitration, which I did for myself. And I I feel that I can add so much of value that this firm will actually get to be known for its litigation and arbitration practice. And I feel that real talent, and I would say also ability for people. When I see litigation teams, they all are very predictable. They know what they are doing, and everybody can sit aside and say, this is what the next step will be. I want to start a very unpredictable practice which understand commercial objective, understand what you want to do, and then you make a strategy, a legal strategy around that. And in my view, there's a great opportunity.
There's a great opportunity.
Yes.
Now, in addition to arbitration, what are the other practice areas Saraf and Partners will be in or is in already?
I think the private equity is one very large part of our practice. M&A, mergers and acquisition, project finance, which is financing infrastructure project, is a very important part of practice. Then banking and finance. I would say if you look at any projects in India, 30% is debt, 30% is equity, and 70% is debt. So capital market, debt capital market and bank financing is a very important part. Capital market, IPR, intellectual property, particularly I think when you go to Make in India, intellectual property, patent related litigation will be very important. Regulatory practice, capital market practice. All these practices are already part of my firm.
Okay.
We have now 26 partners.
26 partners.
Yes. Real estate is a very big practice area. Competition will be a big practice area.
Competition law also.
Yes. So I would say we'll be everywhere because we want to be full service for corporate clients. We don't want to be full service for an individual client.
Is that why you've hired so many people? So many people have also trusted you with, and 150 people. I thought 120, but you said no, it's 150. And before we started the interview, and you said that, Tarun, why can't India have 1,000 lawyer law firm? I mean, you just said it. So do you have it in mind to have 1,000 lawyer law firm?
Absolutely. I would say, really, if you look at, we are at an economy size, we are at $2.8 trillion.
Yes.
And we will move to $5 trillion in next 5-7 years.
Yes.
Then we will move to $10 trillion. I think people say we'll be $10 trillion between 2032 to 2035. Now, if economy doubles, legal business goes 6 times. Legal budget goes 6 times. Complexity of deals goes 6 times. If that is the case, 1,000 lawyer law firm is not a big thing. In my view, by the time we get there, a lot of people should get 2,000 law firm. The only reason in India law firms may not get to 1,000 lawyer because if they fail to share benefit with their younger partners, they will not get. In my last firm, we were around 300 lawyers for almost 10 years. Because we added more people, we lost more people. If you stop losing people, you can get to 1,000 lawyers.
Now, because you talked of practice areas, when I was doing a bit of research on you, before I came here to interview you, I got to know that you were a co-chair of the private equity committee at FICCI, where the head of Carlyle, India head of Carlyle is the chair and you are the co-chair. Now, Carlyle is an institution which has got $260 billion in assets. So, it's that big a company. You're also a part of the law committee with another very famous law firm managing partner, Cyril Shroff. He's the chair, you're the co-chair. And you're also a co-chair in the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Committee with Shardul Shroff, who's another leading law firm managing partner in India. So this is your, in a sense, involvement in the industry also. What are your learnings from involvement in FICCI? Because you're also, I think, a national executive committee member at FICCI. So involvement in the private equity committee with Carlyle, involvement with Cyril Shroff in the law committee, and involvement in the IBC committee with Shardul. That's your social engagement and corporate engagement. What are the learnings from there?
I tell you one thing, the reason why I'm there, I think, but let's talk one by one. Let's talk first about private equity committee.
Yes.
Now, in the private equity committee, almost every top private equity of the country is a member of that committee.
Yes.
Every top member. Now, what do we do there? Neeraj Bharadwaj, the head of Carlyle, is the chair and I am the co-chair.
Yes.
What we do is we look at what are the problems which private equity are facing in this country, number one. And then we engage with the government and try to solve that problem. then we also look at what are the problems where private equity is facing when they're investing in certain businesses, and we solve them. We give that input to the government, to the policymakers, to SEBI. If you see in last after the COVID crisis happened, every company needed equity capital.
Yes.
We really worked very closely as a member
So you're
of.
aligning yourself to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of getting foreign investment in India by giving, in your
Absolutely.
own way, you're giving inputs.
Absolutely correct, because otherwise we can never see our people move from $2,000 per capita to $6,000 per capita. Because unless money comes to this country, the infrastructure will not get developed. Unless infrastructure get developed, productivity of people will not be.
So you
improving.
said that your committee is giving inputs to the government, sharing those inputs so
Yes.
that investment can come into India.
Absolutely. We are sharing that with SEBI, we are sharing that with RBI, we are sharing that with DIPP, we are sharing that with Niti Aayog, and at every place we are sharing that. So that is really what we are doing at the private equity. So really what the private equity members see is that they look at this committee, how this, if this committee works well, they will write checks which is double the size what they've written last year. And if you look at India, just look at, I have been the committee member for the co-chair for last 2 years. Last year, in middle of the crisis, the private equity investment in India, if you look at 18-19 and 19-20, sorry, 2021. So 19-20, financial year 19-20 compared to 2021, which got over in March. The private equity investment has moved up by 75% in a COVID year.
75%.
Yes.
So that's an achievement.
Yes. And that is the reason why this is very important, because unless committees like us bring that perspective to the government may not be able to realize it.
Okay.
And therefore, when the government hears from 30 private equity members who write checks, the problem, and we try to make sure that government is able to appreciate issues well. And that is what is happening, and therefore they are writing bigger checks. If they are writing bigger checks, that's how if you remember 2-3 years back, everybody talked about there's no job creation. Now nobody's talking about job creation has happened and started happening. And that is what the private equity is doing. On the IBC side, this is again a 2 year I've been to, for last 2 years I've been the co-chair along with Shardul. We have really helped the legal framework to develop.
The IBC.
The IBC, because remember IBC was supposed to get cases resolved in 180 days. Then it was increased to 270 days. And still companies take 500 days, 600 days, even 1,000 days to get resolution of a mandate. And the committee works very closely with IBBI, Mr. Sahu, give advice. We have conducted seminars in New York, London, Singapore, Hong Kong, where we go to investors. Imagine, this committee goes and meet the investors, take Mr. Sahu along with us and interact with them. Okay, what are your problems on deals in India? And then we bring those regulatory changes.
In fact, I remember that someone mentioned to me, you also go to the National Judicial Academy to give lectures.
Oh yes.
That's
Actually, that was a very interesting thing which I just did it. 2 weeks back, National Judicial Academy invited me to take a course for High Court judges.
Yeah.
And almost 30-35 High Court judges participated into our session.
So you like to give lectures, that's your another...
Not lectures, but to share my experience.
Share your experience.
And I think it was a very, very positive thing. And I was thinking, when I looked at the interaction, the level of interaction we had with High Court judges, that the High Court judges they do understand that some of these require very specialized training. And some of us have done a little bit more of this work. And therefore, they try to share that.
Okay.
And we share our experience with them.
Now I'll talk to him about the law committee, where you're also, the Cyril Shroff of CAM is the chair and you're the co-chair. What do you do in the law committee?
Actually, law, what we do is we pick up the issues which is a problem area.
Yeah.
Like, remember, there was so many laws, so many sections under Companies Act, where there was a criminal liability on the CEO,
Yes.
on the CFO.
Yes.
Now we identified and worked with the government and got most of these laws changed. So now it is civil law. It's not a criminal liability. So we work with the government. Same, we work with SEBI. We worked with SEBI on changing the rules so that there is a larger participation. And again, this committee, we have members from all top business houses in this country. They're all members. The general councils are member, and they give their problems. They share their problems. Like on the ease of doing business, we actually gave humongous amount of recommendation to the government, and the government actually implemented that.
Now, I want to ask you, this government has unleashed a monetization program where a lot of companies are being privatized. And so they will go into efficient management. So government is living by the dictum that, minimum government and maximum governance. That will happen when companies are privatized, because government will only be in the business of governance, and these government companies will be given to private sector. How do you think that will help India?
I'm actually very actively working with Deepam
Yes.
on a lot of this privatization.
Yes.
I was working earlier with LIC also,
Yes.
the IP of LIC.
Yes.
We are working with a lot of companies which have been privatized.
Yes.
The way to look at Deepam and privatization is little different.
Yes.
It is not the government is getting out of business.
Yes.
I think I made a recommendation to the government that the government actually should call this as a recycle ministry. And I'll
Yes.
give you what. What is the government? If you see old people, what do? They buy mutual fund and
Yes.
keep it.
Yes.
And they live off dividend. India is a young country. India does not need to own businesses. The government of India does not need to own businesses. What they need to do is they have to build business and sell the business.
Okay.
So they should recycle business, because for foreigners to build roads and ports is very difficult in this country.
Yes.
Therefore, what the government is doing is selling matured assets and building new assets.
Yes.
Because otherwise you can't build that much of assets.
Yes.
So government is really recycling these assets, and which in my view is the right thing to do. If you look at when Vedanta was privatized
Yes.
long time back,
Yes.
and you look at how Vedanta has grown, how many people Vedanta employs, just see the dividend income which government has received from Vedanta,
Yes.
the tax income, it's gone crazy. Now, if all these companies get privatized and they grow, your GDP is automatically grown. So what the government is trying to do is they're getting the businesses mature. Like the Deepam has come up with recycling of assets, roads, ports, airports, they're all selling land, because that is how you will build a new India.
Yes.
And that is what the government is doing. And they are taking this money and building more assets. They're not getting out of business.
They are building more assets.
And then they will sell that.
Yes.
And therefore, they are recycling asset. I think when a lot of people politically say that government is selling silver, it's not. Government is selling a golden asset, but they are using that cash to build new assets, which will change life of people who are not touched by development, like villages.
So this is in
70%.
India's interest.
It is India's have-not interest.
Yes.
There are almost 700 million people in this country who are have-nots in India.
They will benefit from
They
it.
will benefit.
Now,
Because if you actually build infrastructure, you build industry, the productivity of people increases, and therefore their income increases.
okay. Point well. Now, coming back to your law firm, Saraf and Partners, 150 people already. Would you keep on this hiring spree and adding people?
I tell you, today, Tarun, we do not have bandwidth. Today, if somebody gives us 5 new work, we cannot take it. So we are hiring because we need people,
Yes.
because we are attracting a lot of good business. My partners, now we have 26 equity partners. There are 26 partners who own the firm.
Now,
My erstwhile firm, there were only 2 partners who owned the firm.
right.
Today it is 26 partners. Now, if all these 26 partners want to grow,
So are you creating a firm that will outlive you?
absolutely,
So it is not about you. The firm is a much larger thing.
absolutely correct. Because really, at the end of the day, I'm 55 now.
Yeah.
So I will work for the next 10 years. But after that, really, this firm should be an instrument in itself.
So it's
It should be an
autopilot.
institution. Yes, no, it will not be autopilot, but it will have a like a McKinsey.
Yes.
It will be a firm like a McKinsey. It will be a firm like a Skadden Arps. It will be run by professional. There will be a committee, a management committee. We already have a big management committee. Now we're doing I would say a management committee meeting in person on the 29th of October, which is followed by a whole partners meeting. This is our first partner meeting. We are going to get all partners and the spouses here, and we'll sit here and chat about how to move to the next 12 months.
So I want to understand, every law firm has a core philosophy. Some law firms will do a lot of work and charge very less. Some will work in a certain value substance. Because you're such a large law firm with so many practice areas, do you have a philosophy that you go by?
I will tell you, let me explain to you. This is what my philosophy has been for last 20 years. I would work for a small client if they are doing a big deal. I will do work for a big client even if I get a chance to do a small deal. But I will never do a small deal for a small client. And now let me explain what I try to say. So if it's a big client, I've never worked. I will take a small work for them because I take that as a foot in the door. And because I clearly believe that if I get a foot, the client will start relying on me and I'll do a lot of work. I will do for a small company, one of the transactions, they're doing a lifetime transaction, I'll do that. But I will not do a small work for a small client. That means small work for a small client, when I say is that I believe the client who will stay small all his life. We are not interested. So we want to be on a value business. Whatever the size will be, we will not cut price and be in the market. We are not wanting to grow at the cost of cutting price. We don't want to be known in the market as a cheap law firm. We want to be expensive law firm. And when I say expensive, I want every client to feel that what we charged, we gave value more than what we charged. So, but we don't want to be doing very routine work at the minimum price.
So you have a house of top talent for people who appreciate top talent, is what.
Correct. And also for top transactions. If a big corporate is doing small little transactions, they don't need to use us.
Yes.
When they do life-changing transaction, that is where we will be adding value.
I want to ask you something, because India is growing so fast in terms of, we are from 2 trillion, we'll go to 5 trillion. The demography is such. What is the potential you see for doing deals of law firms? Do you think this is going to be the best growth phase, not for your law firm, but for many law firms?
Absolutely. I would say we are almost like what China was in 1990. If you see from 1990 to 2020 how China has grown, we will grow the same way next 20 years in this country. And this is, in my view, is the golden period for India. In last 4-5 years, we've done a lot of disruptive changes, whether it's a GST, whether it's a demonetization, whether it's RERA, whether it's an IBC law. Now, all the benefits are now coming. So next 20 years are going to be growth. And I'm telling you, Tarun, that this phase you will see hundreds of lawyers you have never seen in your life.
The new lawyers.
The new lawyers. And you will see hundreds of lawyers you have heard will disappear. Because transaction will require so much of work and so much of original thinking that the cut and paste law firm will not be able to survive.
So, on a parting note, because also a lot of young lawyers watch you from all over India and outside also, any message for the young lawyers who are watching you today?
I think, in my view, if you are a business lawyer, this is an absolutely the best phase of your life. Whether you are in contentious matter, litigation, arbitration, or business, you can do very well. I think what is important is you have to be 100% in control. You have to work very hard, and you have to make law as a passion. Because law otherwise can be a very boring subject. If law is a passion, you enjoy working, then you will work more.
Yes.
And I think that is an important thing, because if you see most lawyers in this country, they deliver almost 80% stuff the same.
Yes.
The only difference is the top 20%.
Yes.
And therefore, if you are in that, if you are a 98, 97%, people can distinguish you. Otherwise, everybody knows the same stuff.
Yes.
And that is what it is important. And I would say that there will be hundreds of lawyers, because really, if you look at last few years, only few lawyers are known in this country.
Yes.
In a way, it is a little bit feudal setup.
Yes.
Only few. But that won't happen. Next 10, 20 years, that won't happen.
So we are ending this show, our part 1 on our chat with Mohit Saraf, on a good note. He says lot many new opportunities in the next 5-10 years and a whole new sea of lawyers who will be well known and famous. But he also said that law should be your passion and you should enjoy transactions. You must enjoy M&A. You should enjoy that process. That is when you can deliver. And a very important thing which I understood from him, he says more or less 80% work will be same, but that 20% add-on that a law firm provides, that makes all the difference. I would like to thank you for sparing your time with us today, joining us and sharing all these nuggets of wisdom, also what your law firm does. As I realized that last when I read about Saraf and Partners, it was 120 people. It's 150 between these few days. I think the next time I chat with you, I will hear even more people and even more good news. So best wishes for that.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, viewers, for joining us on this episode of Legally Speaking. I'll see you soon with the next episode. Thank you so much. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.